Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. People are still trickling in, and that's quite all right. My name is Carrie Hardison, and I am the education manager for the Oregon Wine Board. And I want to preface this by saying that I am not a digital marketing expert by any means. That's why we have Jeremy here. But I'm going to be facilitating some activities, which is my background. I've been an art educator for most of my career. Middle school art teacher, if you can imagine that, for a long time. So I know a little something about assessments and activities. So that's my role here. I'm going to turn it over to my partner today, and he's going to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Schubert, for those of you who don't know me. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. No? Okay, I might go here. Can I use that? I don't like being stuck to one place, so we're just going to go like this today. So for those of you who don't know me, we've been in business about, 18 years now. I've been in the world of wineries and digital marketing. Here's some of our clients, just to give you an overview of how kind of entrenched we are with the Willamette Valley in particular. But we do have clients throughout the U.S. Do a lot of consulting with wine associations. We do websites, we do email marketing, social media, obviously. That's what we're here to talk about today. So I basically just want to kind of run down the agenda for today. Talk about brand story. How many of you were in the earlier Bullseye digital marketing for the distribution side of things? A few? Okay. And then how many of you were in the other marketing session this morning, the tasting room one? Okay. Okay, cool. So a little bit of riffing off of what, if you weren't at the one, but Claire's from Big Table Farm did a lot of kind of the, if I could have had a perfect opening act, she was it. She was perfect for today. She pretty much did my job of convincing everybody that you need a good website, and social media is very important and all that kind of stuff. So it was really great to hear that from the winery side of things. So today we're just going to kind of run through, again, the same kind of way you did earlier, but we're going to be a little more intensive today. Assessing the brand story. We're going to talk about developing that brand story, how we actually kind of find it, right? How we discover it. Do a digital brand review. Basically, once you have your story, right? Yay, everybody's excited. We have the story. But now let's look at the 22 sites where you're listed and figure out, is my brand story there, right? So we have a nice handy checklist for all that. We're also going to do the interactive part where basically, everybody's favorite, I know, but we're going to partner up and kind of get a fresh look at your website and your Google results. And we're going to do a first impression audit, essentially. So I think it's just a great opportunity. We're all in the trade. We're all friends here to really just kind of get a fresh perspective on that. Something that is really important, even for the bigger brands. And I work with some fairly large brands. And from small to large, even the big brands sometimes don't realize the extent to which their story translates and where that is. And there's a lot of correction that can be done on that. And then finally, I'm going to run through some brand monitoring, try to make it easy for you. For those of you whose job it is to look at Yelp and TripAdvisor and respond to reviews and track Twitter hashtags and Instagram and all that kind of stuff, it can get pretty tedious. So A, I want to tell you that it's okay. You don't have to do it all the time. But B, make it a little bit easier for you and kind of discuss that. So the first thing that Carrie's going to do here, well, actually, I think it's just on your worksheet here, is page 2 of your workbook.
How many people, this summer, Jeremy traveled with the Oregon Wine Board around the state, and we did the Oregon Wine Resource Studio workshops. Raise your hand if you were part of that. Excellent. So we're going to be doing that again today, but hopefully for those people who were in that workshop, maybe have a little bit better idea. But we also know from Christian Miller's presentation that you have got to stand out in the wine market. So your brand story has got to be as tight as possible. So we're going to do a little activity today right now on page 2. I'm going to time you. You're going to have 3 minutes. Got to find my phone. You're going to have 3 minutes to write down as much as you can on page 2. Write down your unique characteristics about your brand, and if you can compile it into a concise sentence. Go, now. You're being timed. Oh.
start the timer.
I stopped. Oh, it's going. It's hard. Page 2. And of course, if you're not a winery, you have a different kind of business, you can be assessing your brand story for your business as well if you don't happen to be a winery. Because I just saw Carl walk in. "20 seconds. Two, one, stop. Raise your hand if you nailed it. You just knew it right away. It was no problem at all. Raise your hand if you struggled a little bit. Okay, so 3 minutes is actually a really long time. You should know it, bam, right away. So Jeremy's going to talk a little bit more about that, and we're going to come back to a few more activities in just a little bit.
I'm glad to see so many of you struggled with it, which means that you're in the right place, right? So let's figure it out. I also want to preface most of this by saying that this is essentially, I'm thinking in the consumer mindset right now. So the brand story that we're developing in this example and that we're doing is consumer side. Obviously, there's a trade side of things. Obviously, there's the tasting room side of things. Kind of, this is digital consumer, if you will. So that's kind of like that three-legged stool. Earlier today we had 2 of those legs, and today we have the digital side of it. So take that in for a second. So oftentimes what happens is, it comes down to this, is you have to know your audience. When you're coming up with your brand story, and in this case a consumer brand story, we have to realize the education level of our consumers. Here in Oregon, somebody walking into the tasting room might have a higher wine IQ than somebody that we're email marketing to in New York. So just keep in mind though, in general when talking to consumers, kind of just keep it simple. If you discover that they want to geek out, if you discover that there is a more interested audience, that's fine. But in general, if we can keep our stories simple and concise and easy to retell, that's really key. So it kind of comes down to this on the concise part of things. Can you tell your story in 2 sentences? And then do those 2 sentences resonate, right? So not only, hey, this is what I think my brand is, but does that resonate with my customers? Because sometimes there's a disconnect there. I think this is what my brand is, but it doesn't resonate. And then here's the other thing, and I know this has been drilled into your heads today and probably all the time now, but how are you different, right? I know this, probably people here from outside the Willamette Valley. In the Willamette Valley, it's difficult. All Pinot, all good scores. You're all making really good wine. If you're at the earlier bullseye session, the kind of common phrases, family-owned, farm-to-table, organic, biodynamic. Most of you are already those things, right? So we want to make sure that we try to pull out the threads that make you different. What makes you different than the guy down the road? In case you don't know and you hear the phrase, USP, or unique selling proposition, is simply that which makes you different. So that's what we're really focusing on here with the marketing. About a month ago, when I started doing some of the research for putting together this presentation, I was looking around the internet, as one does when they're putting together presentations, and I came upon this quote from winebusiness.com. And let me just have you read that for a second. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but this was a quote from Brad at Illahee, and he was being interviewed by a local newspaper right about when he was getting started. And he realized, as I'm getting started, I am like everybody, so what am I going to do about it? And if you know the story of Illahee, you probably know what he did about it. But I'm going to come back to this in a few minutes. So what options do you have when you're talking about developing your brand story? So we got to kind of go through the common ones. People and history, right? Who are the people? Are you pioneers in the Oregon wine industry? Are you just the new guy on the block, but you do something really cool or different, right? The place, the land, the elevation, the soil type. What is it that makes you different? Is there something you do differently with vinification? Whatever that may be. Hey, we use all neutral oak. Hey, we do all stainless steel shards. Whatever it may be in the vinification process, what threads can you pull out? Soil kind of goes along with place, obviously, but a good example of this, I think of Fire and Flood before they switched over, but some of it was volcanic soil, some of it was, I believe, Willackenzie soil, I can't remember, some sort of alluvial floodplain soil. But basically, they had vines planted in the same vineyard on two different soil types, right? So what an easy story that is to tell consumers. Hey, in one tasting, you get to try volcanic soil, you get to try some sedimentary soil, same wine, same winemaker, same everything, same clone. So now we have a quick little story because they pulled the soil out of it, right? Also, point of view, are you a party winery? Are you a very snooty, high-end winery? What's your point of view on all of this? And kind of own that, right? And that goes along with personality as well. Every once in a while in my line of work, when you're putting together things like this and doing research, you come upon your favorite thing in the world, which is the Castle Winery in the Finger Lakes that I came upon, who literally has a castle for their website. And their tagline is, "We are the medieval winery of the Finger Lakes." Why? I don't know. You look at their website, and then you actually look at the pictures. They have no castle there. It's just a barn, okay? It's like a barn they built 10 years ago. And the more I delved into the site, the more I just enjoyed it, from every marketing faux pas that could possibly be in one website, yet it all works so beautifully. And it all works because, as Carrie said, it's just stupid and it's different, and I love every part of it. And I guarantee that all of you will remember the medieval winery of the Finger Lakes, right, when you get out of here. So I use it as an extreme example of, and again, if anybody here wants to be the Castle Medieval Winery of Willamette Valley, I guarantee you'll make some money. But point being, obviously, you're not going to go to this extreme, but that kind of thing resonates. That kind of thing is memorable. So we have to find those things that kind of pull it out. Another thing I always try to harp on is, and it goes back to being concise, it goes back to the story being really easy to tell, and what I am particularly interested in is the story really easy to retell, right? Because what ends up happening is the telephone game, right? So I used to, many, many years ago, server at a high-end restaurant, I would have to sell $90, $100 bottles of wine. How am I going to do that? Because Lord knows the restaurant owner is not going to open that sample for me. I need a story. I need confidence in the wine I'm selling. Now, how do you get your story from the winery all the way to that server somewhere else in the country? how is that same story told that's not being played by the telephone game? By the time it gets to that server, they've totally screwed up the story, right? You were founded like 18 years before you were, and you grow Chard and something else, and you don't even grow Chardonnay, right? How do you keep that story concise and easy to retell, and the ripple effect, right? So I call it the Luna Bean Media's theory of story ripple effect, copyright, trademarked, registered trademark. I need to come up with a better name than that, obviously. So that kind of runs through my mind too, just the thread of that ripple effect of every part of the chain of selling, from winery to tasting room, to staff, to waiter, to distributors. How can everybody be telling the same story so that we control the story? It's the story we want told. If your story is disjointed, if it's long, if it's just not very memorable, it's not going to work. So it comes down to this, right? So even big wineries that think they have their story dialed in, this is actually pretty helpful. I've done it with a few, large and small. So how do you figure out your story? You know your story, but you want to get some feedback. You want to figure out what other people think your story is. So you can just do a round table with your staff. Usually when I walk in with a client, I'm just trying to get the kind of feel for everything. I'll get everybody around, all the principals, all the tasting room staff, winemaker, owner, marketing manager, in one sentence, tell me what your winery's about. And everybody has a little different idea of what their winery's about. And it becomes this really interesting kind of brainstorming session of, oh yeah, and we pulled out these common threads that everybody has and said, okay, we can market that. That's what we have. That's what you're missing. And sometimes, particularly with the wineries that have been around forever and ever, it's hard for them to see kind of the forest through the trees. Everybody's so humble and everybody's so nice, and oh, we're just farmers and we've been around. Yeah, but you're farmers who make an amazing wine that constantly gets 92s in Spectator, right? And so that's the things we kind of need to pull out and to take ownership of it and to be really proud of it. Another thing you can do is individual staff interviews, and it kind of goes along, obviously, with the roundtable. But getting people one-on-one, particularly in the tasting room, when you sell this wine, what do you tell people? What makes people want to buy this wine, right? And that's the story that they're telling. They're telling some sort of story to a customer to make them buy it. So we just want to figure out what they're doing that's being successful. Your most loyal people, your club members, are always willing to help you, I've found, over the years. They are also very good with feedback. So just doing even something as simple as a survey monkey out to club list, you get some really interesting feedback, right? You start to, okay, what do my best customers, the people that buy the most wine from me, think about my winery? And then that helps to form the story as well. And this goes back to, I think my story is this, is it resonating with people, right? And if we can combine those two, it becomes really powerful. Another thing to think about too is, if you have a tasting room and you get a lot of referral traffic, ask the tasting room manager over there, hey, when you send people to my winery, what do you tell them, right? What makes you want to sell my winery to them? What is it about my winery that you say to people, right? So that's another way to think about it. And then you can also ask your distributors, same kind of thing. What are you telling people when they are you're trying to sell my wine? What are you telling people? So you kind of take all that and you have all this nice feedback and you combine that with your story that you think it is, and you're going to pull these threads out, and it's going to become a much more powerful, much more concise, much more, or just a story that's going to resonate better. So we're going to do a couple of quick, I'm going to throw it out here. Read this and then tell me what you like about it. Raise your hand, throw it out. We're all friendly and happy here. Yeah?
What is basket press?
Different.
I want to see that.
Right? We have part of a story developing. Anybody else? Throw it out. Come on, people. Let's go. What?
Sounds natural.
Okay, good. Thank you, Carl.
I like the end of it, but I want to see that at the beginning because I don't like that it starts at the beginning.
Good point.
About what they're not doing as opposed to what they are doing.
It's a good point. Very good point. I like that a lot, actually. I didn't think of that one. Well done, everybody. part of the thing at the end there, bearing the lead, is something I also hate to see, because oftentimes I'll read a client's 3-paragraph long, this is my story. I'm like, oh my God, the interesting thing was paragraph 2 in the 3rd sentence, right? That's what you need to pull out. So even if you have a story right now, reread it and see if you can find that little kernel that's really interesting and bring that up to the top so it's the first thing people read. Anything else we like about this?
Get a sense that they're passionate because they take time to do all this.
Yeah.
Intricate, special things that take more time.
Yeah, and it's kind of the extreme example of, yes, we're all doing things naturally, we're not using chemicals and all that, but I mean to the point where we're using no electricity mechanization for part of it. And this is obviously Illihi's, right? So I kind of wanted to pull those two together from earlier. What did he do different? And this is what he does. Now, he doesn't make all of his wine like this, but he makes enough of it that we can talk about it as part of the story, right? So yeah, so let's read this one real quick. And just throw it out there, things you like, things you don't like.
Sounds like every other winery.
It's every other darn winery in the world, right? Yep. What other things do we like or not like? Yeah.
We strive to.
Aspirational, right? I hope someday we make good wine. Hasn't been too successful thus far, right? We create wines of. We strive to create. Right? It's a difference there, and just one word being removed, or 2 words technically. Yes, anything else?
They have a hillside vineyard.
Right? Isn't that exciting? Woohoo! Yep. Uh-huh. Is there anything in there that you find interesting that you want to know a little bit more about?
Environmental pieces is good.
Okay.
What distinctive flavors?
What are the darn distinctive flavors? The distinctive flavors of our hillside vineyards are blah, 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 right? That's what's interesting. That's what makes us different. It's not the most generic thing in the world. This could be any winery, anywhere. Okay, we'll do 2 more of these. Move on. Okay, what do we like? What don't we like? Anybody recognize who this is? So A, we look around the room and everybody chuckles, right? What a great first impression. Happiness. You read this, even just a little bit of wittiness, a little bit of personality, what a great first brand impression that is, right? People are smiling. Okay, let's go from there. What do we got?
I find this exceedingly pretentious.
And on the negative side, you're going to rub a few people. It's a good point. When you are like this, when you put more personality into something, you're going to rub a few people the wrong way. And that's fine. If you want to take ownership of it and go for it, do it. But know that you're going to have some people who react poorly to that kind of messaging.
I'm going to jump in and say sometimes when you rub people the wrong way, they'd never forget. So they're going to remember you.
Good point. I like that. Paul, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Somehow insubstantial, very personality driven. Doesn't say anything really credible to me.
Interesting.
It's not personality driven.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we selling whoever he is or the wine?
Well, that's a great question. And that's a question that you might want to answer for yourselves. If you have a really enigmatic winemaker, you might be selling the winemaker, right? I mean, that's something. Are we selling wine? Are we selling lifestyle? Are we selling a really popular rock star of a winemaker? So those are kind of questions that you have to ask yourself. In this case, with Jim Prosser at J.K. Carrier, that's the personality. That's who he is. And so by reading this, you instantly know that's the kind of attitude I'm going to get from this winery. And honestly, in my line of work, I would much prefer to have something with personality that rubs people the wrong way than be generic and boring. Generic and boring never works. Okay, I'm going to do one more. I think you'll be able to rip this one apart pretty well. Throw it out. Anybody?
I hate ultra premium.
Ultra premium, right? This was written in like 2002. Okay, what else we got?
Marketing.
Thank you. That's something that most people miss. Let's remind people we're marketing to them, because that's a brilliant idea. Never use words like that in your copy. We market. We get it. You do market, but let's not remind me that I'm being marketed to, because that's when I turn off.
Similar, designed to ensure, rather than just saying our wines are complex.
Right. So it's kind of that aspirational again, right? But it's a good thing you pulled out. What other thing does designed to ensure sound like? In a world where year after year we're striving to, well, it sounds mass-produced, right? In a world where we are just, every year is different, and we're just trying to pull different wines out every single year based on whatever happened that year. We strive, it's just to ensure complex, concentrated, elegant year after year. Just sounds like it's mass-produced junk, right? So you have to watch out for that kind of language too. Anything else? Because I'm just going to kind of cruise along, so we have a lot to cover. But you get the idea. Assess your own brand story that's out there in the world. Take a look at it. Take a look at it with a critical eye. Read it. Have somebody else read it. Tell them, have them tell you their impressions. One thing before I move on, Owen Rowe, who's one of my favorite as far as their marketing materials go, and I only bring this up because I had a really good story about it. So as Carrie and the Oregon Wine Board, and we toured around last year to 5 different regions in Oregon, and it was down in Southern Oregon where Owen Rowe, by the way, tech sheet of Owen Rowe, the story is right there, right? Tasting notes, sure. The wine, sure. If your tech notes don't have the story on it, I would recommend you take a look at that. But point being, it's a great story, and you can kind of read it. I had I think it was from Del Rio, a national sales manager from Del Rio say, I used to live in New York City, I used to manage a restaurant. And by the glass, we got this wine in. And the servers were able to read this story and tell the tables this story. And he said we started selling hundreds of cases of this wine. He said it was the difference between having a wine by the glass that just nobody really cared about, and all of a sudden now, because this story resonated, because it was easy to tell and retell, that story made it all the way to the server at the table, and they sold a ton of wine. By the way, it's a great story. Oops. But we don't have time to read it right now. Okay. So anyway, point being, don't be generic. Bite-sized info. Know your audience, because you probably will develop different stories for different audiences. Trade, local, national, tasting room, etc. So just keep that in mind, but always want it to be a consistent thread. Don't bury the lead at the end there. Bring the most interesting item up first. Also, I want to really hit on it's not about you, it's about them aspect of things. Oftentimes we write as, that I'm the customer, right? No, I'm not the customer. Your customer's the customer. Write for them. Write what they want. And part of that earlier exercise of interviewing and surveying your club members will help you to write for them. So basically, this ends the now we have our story, what the heck do we do with it part, right? And so we want to make sure staff is trained up on that. We want to make sure they're telling our story. Sales presentations, trade materials, website, et cetera. I'm going to have a nice big checklist here in a moment. But first, actually, I'll do this first. Okay. So now we have our story, right? Now our story is out there in the world. Many people have gleaned our story from websites. Many people have the wrong story on their website. So we want to take ownership and control of our story, wherever that may be. And I have a checklist for you in your workbook for this.
Page 5.
Thank you, Carrie. So yeah, and so basically, homework. Go through these sites. Take a look at what it says about you. For example, with TripAdvisor or Yelp, in the same way that you can claim a Facebook page and change it, or claim, whatever. You can claim your TripAdvisor page, you can claim your Yelp page, and write what you want to write. So that when a customer interacts with you, when a customer first sees you in a review site, the message you want out there is out there, okay? So just keep that in mind. So is your story there? Is it consistent? And when was the last time you reviewed it? That's another thing to keep in mind. So we're going to do a little exercise, and Carrie's going to help lead it. It's not terribly complicated, but I just want to explain. This is a really good chance for you to get a good first impression of what your A, Google search results look like, and then B, your website. And so pull out your phones if you have them or if you're connected to the internet and have the person next to you tell you their website or their winery's name and type it in. And you're going to take a look at what appears in the Google search results of your partner and then write it down.
So I know it's sometimes uncomfortable to partner up, but we did this summer, and it was so valuable. What people learned about each other. So find a partner. If you don't have a phone or something, you can still follow along. But don't go to their website. Just find their business name and find out what comes up.
I think so too. It's fine.
I mean, this is good stuff. So.
Yeah, it's fine. People are chattering. I don't care what it's about right now.
Carrie, we're till 4:30, right? 3:15 to 4:30? Okay.
That's what people think about it. Like, you're like, oh yeah, there's something. Are you timing this part? No. Wait another minute or so and it's like... No, that's fine. And then just say like if you might already be looking at their website, but if you weren't, now take a look at their website.
Now we're
I'll just like focus on this.
Okay, everybody, if you have not gone to your partner's website, do that now, and I want you to share with them your first impressions of, are you able to glean the story? Are you able to find out what's unique about them? And, you know, this is a safe space, but share what you found. Is it easy, is it easy to find out what the story is and what makes somebody unique? Okay, if you want to write any notes for your partner on that assessment sheet, you can write and then give it back to them so they can take that away with them. So if you'd like to do that now.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we're going to bring it back down. Raise your hand if somebody found out something surprising from their partner, either about their own website or their Google search. Let's start with the Google search. Yes?
The second thing that came about with our website and the site was the Wikipedia page, which gave the impression that we were larger and more established. I think that.
Interesting. Huh.
Did you make the Wikipedia page, or?
Was the Wikipedia page about your winery or about...
Was it correct? Mostly? Yeah.
Is that something that people can own? A Wikipedia page?
Technically, Wikipedia does not allow you to create your own listing, and they're kind of very iffy about that. It's a good thing that if it happens to you, it's good, but yeah.
Anyone else want to share anything that they were surprised with? They found, yeah.
I found an Oregon Live article written about our winery by Catherine Cole that I'd never seen.
Isn't that funny, the things that you find?
Recent
What-
or from a while ago?
From 2013, but it's like one of the top things you see.
So the question, so the reason I had you do this, so if we think about two things, right? We have search result page, and that was the kind of the first thing, and then we have the website, right? Search results page for that, though, very first impression of your brand. Somebody types in your brand name, search results are actually the first impression of your brand. Having that article there is the second thing. What a great first impression you have sitting there, right?
Anything else that anyone? What about when you looked at the website? Anybody found anything interesting or surprising? Yeah.
I have a question then, like, what do you want your landing page to be? I mean, I see the pictures and your name, but what should be the next information? Like your events, or should it be your story?
Well, depending on how your website structure is set up, Google will kind of determine if you have kind of the 6 little thing. All of you should have had the location-based part of it first, right? If you've registered your business correctly. But yeah, Google kind of decides after that what things to pull up. So you don't have a whole lot of control over that. My biggest thing is was there anything in those top 10 results that you're like, oh crap, we are totally screwed on this. We need to get rid of that. So brand reputation monitoring, right? B, what I want you to do is I want you to dominate that page. I want all 10 of those results to be your website, right? And then Yelp, 5-star, TripAdvisor, 5-star, Facebook page, Twitter feed, article from Oregon Live, so that's kind of what I want it to be all about your winery. I don't want to have other wineries or competitors in there, or you found some horrible article in there, kind of thing. It's just being aware of what the very first impression of your brand is. And then website-wise, was there anything surprising? Anything you guys know you need to do? Maybe you don't want to share because you're embarrassed. Well, point being, and it was brought up earlier today, if your website is not mobile friendly, I think it was eloquently said, get on that tomorrow. Other than that, what I really am interested in is your story easily accessible? Is that same story that we just discovered right there on your website so people can determine it and read it and explore it? How easy is it for them to then buy wine? How far away are they from buying wine? 8 clicks, 9 clicks, 10 clicks? 1 click preferably. Just keep all that stuff in mind. Anything else we want to share? Feel free. As Carrie says, this is a safe space. Good.
It's a good idea to do this every once in a while. Have someone else do it through their lens, through the consumer lens, to see what are people seeing when they're looking for you. I'm constantly Googling weird stuff just because I want to try something new, just to see what's coming up. That's the consumer experience. So doing this often is a good way to see what you need to improve on.
One of the things I want to point out here is that the very first result's probably going to be your website. Now, I picked on a winery that's not in Oregon here. I could have picked on many of you, but I decided not to. But I pulled this one from Finger Lakes. And so, I know it might be a little hard to read. So, Red Newt Cellars, right? Life-changing Riesling in the Finger Lakes. Winery and bistro located in Hector, includes descriptions of wines and online ordering. Right? Those two things are so disjointed. They got the title tag correct, life-changing Riesling in the Finger Lakes, but they failed to write the description tag correctly. So this is something you can actually control on your website, and it's not something that you can necessarily just jump in and do. You may have to ask your web developer to do it. But point is, Google kind of looks to see if you have a description tag written. If it doesn't, it just puts whatever it thinks should be there. But you can control the messaging. So what a big missed opportunity. This is the very first search result when you type in Red Newt Cellars, and they failed to have a good description tag right there. Here's one for our Stewart that is written a lot better. Discover our passion for handcrafted, elegant, fun, vivacious Pinot, blah, 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 right? My point is when you're writing these things and everybody kind of goes into robotic mode, oh, I need keywords and all that stuff, it doesn't matter anymore. You write for the human. You write for people. Because when somebody's determining whether or not they want to click on your site, or if somebody types in Dundee Hills Wineries, and they see the list of 10 different wineries on that first page, they get to read the descriptions. And if you have a really enticing description, you win. Somebody's going to click through on that, right? And once they click through, now our website has to be good, right? So that's the point on that. OK. So let's move along to brand monitoring and customer service. I'm going to talk a little bit about Google Alerts. Okay, I'm sure I'd be very disappointed in all of you if you haven't set these up. So raise your hand if you have Google Alerts set up for your winery. Good. Okay. Okay, a few of you. If you don't, google.com/alerts, crazy, and set up Google Alerts for your brand. So you're going to want to type in your winery's name, variations on your winery's name, because Lord knows we can never remember if it's Vista Hills Vineyard, Vista Hills Vineyards, Vista Hills Wine, Vista Hills Winery. So type in all those combinations, right? So make sure that Google grabs all those, because that's how consumers are talking about your winery. And all Google Alerts does is, depending on the frequency, but once a day, it will email you if it found a mention of your winery's name out in the world, right? So yeah, we're being proactive now. So now, if an Oregon Live article does get written about you in 2013, you will probably be alerted to that fact, right? Another thing you can do with Google Alerts is set up alerts for nearby wineries so that you can spy on them, right? So if we set up alerts for competitors, for people that we want to keep track of, now alerts are coming in being like, oh, what is that? That's a great idea. That's a great event. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to steal that idea, right? Don't forget also to put in the region name. So if you are in Umpqua Valley, or you're in Columbia Gorge, or Dundee Hills, make sure that you are entering that. So now you have this daily digest of 7 or 8 different search terms that are coming to you every day, and you have a nice kind of overview of my brand, my competitors, my friends in the business, and the region name, right? Also, varietal name if you want. If you kind of want to keep track of like, oh, I need content for social media, and oh, there's a good Pinot Noir story, feel free to do that as well. So that's one level of, that's the most basic level of brand reputation monitoring, right? So now we have all these other sites we have to keep track of, right? It becomes a really tedious, sometimes overwhelming task to keep up on everything. Facebook, more or less, so who here has Facebook for their winery? Raise your hand. Okay, who here gets alerts anytime there's a message? Okay, so more or less you're all being contacted already. That's kind of Facebook's job to do that. So when I say daily, you're being alerted if somebody writes a message to your winery, and usually that's, hey, my band wants to play, or hey, I need a donation, right? But in general, it's a really powerful tool for customer service and communication, and people are expecting to reach out to you on Facebook. So just keep in mind that you need to be replying quickly. With Twitter and Instagram, depending if you're even on these platforms, and I don't advocate necessarily that you are on every platform, I'd rather you just be good at one that you like and do it really well. But point is, if you are on these platforms, just try to kind of make it a twice-a-week affair for your, search hashtags, go to Instagram. I mean, the most basic thing you do is go to Instagram and search for your winery's name and search for your business's hashtag and just see what comes up. People have posted pictures, people will be talking about you, and it just gives you a little bit of a chance to see what's going on with people, in the area. You can also do the same thing with searching for region and location and that kind of thing. So again, it's just kind of learning what's out there. How are people talking about my brand? Then we have TripAdvisor and Yelp. So people are reviewing your wineries, whether you like it or not, and we need to make sure that we're on that, right? So at least once a week, search for reviews. Make sure that you're not missing something. I'm going to talk about reviews in a minute. Yeah?
Quick question. So I'm always so appreciative when we get a good review.
Mhm.
Everybody will love that. But the dilemma is I sometimes wonder how to respond. And there's only so many ways you can make saying thank you so much.
Right.
So happy to have you. Hope you come back again. Make it sound different and clever every
Right.
time. So then I started just thinking like, I love this. And then I felt stupid. It's the best way to, what am I supposed to do?
The simple answer is, A, you're doing it, so good for you, right? You're replying to every review or every comment, right? So you're winning on that front to start. Yeah, I mean, it does become a dilemma that, boilerplate every time is just like, thanks for the review, thanks for the review, Try to, if somebody in your tasting room had an interaction with that person, or if you remember that person, try to make it a little personal. Hey, it was so nice meeting you today. Your story about the dog was amazing, right? Or just kind of, if you can do that, and then again, if you always think about too, as I do, is it's not necessarily that one review I'm worried about, it's somebody reading all of your reviews, and if the next customer that's reading your reviews sees that you reply to everything, and that you reply with personality, you win, right? It's just, you're doing so much more than a lot of people are. But yeah, it's hard. Honestly, it's fine if it's just kind of generic and boring on those. Just the fact you're responding gives people the blip that, oh, they cared about me. So you're doing well.
Is there a tactful way, or does it ever make sense to take a review? Like, let's say it's especially sounds like it's just real. It's not somebody saying how amazing you are. It's more very real. We came in with our dog, and then they showed a picture of them with the dog and our wine. Is there ever something you can do with that, where instead of us ever trying to tell people, really come by, it's wonderful, can you put someone's review forward in a tactful way and let a customer speak for you? What platform would you use, or never?
To kind of just spread the word about a really good review you had, or I guess.
To share a really good
To
review.
reuse that in a way.
Yeah, well.
Is that good?
It is good. I mean, and literally, I mean, TripAdvisor makes a widget for your website that will, put up your reviews. You could technically copy and paste that and put that into a Facebook post. You could take a screenshot of it and put it there. Hey, look at so and so. What a great review we had today. Thanks. We love all of our customers, kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, you could take a screenshot of it and put it on your website, like in the footer, or just kind of as that great review we had. So sure, there's little things like that you can do. I wouldn't do it all the time, but yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Just piggybacking on that, for one of my clients, we do post reviews about twice a month when they're really great, and on Facebook, and we get some of our best engagement on those. We're doing screenshots, so it's obvious that we're not fiddling with the text or faking it, and the results have been really great. And it's fun to see real people saying nice things about it.
Yeah, so she was just saying taking a screen snap of that and then posting it as a Facebook post. I think is great. Okay, I'm going to cruise on here. Normal world of marketing. We have our website, we have our review sites, we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Oh my God, now we have wine-specific sites, right? So now we have to look at Snooth and Vivino and Delectable and all of those that are out there that exist, right? And so those, Vivino and Delectable. Who uses Vivino, the app? Who uses Delectable? Okay. Essentially, there's a lot of up-and-coming kind of wine apps that are out there that the millennials are using, but they are. And the point is that you don't necessarily get to control the messaging on those, but it's really good if you know what people are saying about your wine on those. And oftentimes, and they're essentially review sites, and so you may have gotten a 94 for that 2013 Pinot, but you're getting a 3.7 on that on average on Delectable or on Vivino. And that's fine because it's actually more of a real review on there. You'll see that in general the scores it's hard to get a 4 there. My point is that this is part of your brand reputation monitoring task. to get out there and to see what people are saying about your wine on wine-specific sites like this. So we can do it all that way. We can go daily task. I'm going to spend a half an hour. I'm going to look at these sites. I'm going to look at Facebook. I'm going to reply to messages, because Lord knows we all have an extra half an hour in our day to do all that, right? But isn't there a better way? So who here uses some sort of social media management platform, like Hootsuite? Raise your hand. OK, good. So I'm going to show you Hootsuite here. There are a number of them that are similar to this, but I think this is the easiest to use. So all we're doing is we're essentially combining all of those daily tasks into one platform, into one dashboard, so that with one glance, we can see everything that's going on between our Twitter feed, our Instagram feed, our Facebook feed, and a special surprise for you at the end, your reviews, that I'll show you in a minute. OK. So in other words, you basically come up with this dashboard. And I'm not going to show you how to set up Hootsuite. It's fairly, yeah. No, it's fine. You just interrupted me in the middle. No, I'm just kidding. You did, and I called on you. It's my fault. Yes, go ahead.
My first concern is that Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they all call for specific media items on their specific platforms. Beyond establishing dashboard, before we get into this, but is there a way to make it that's more unique for each platform? Or is it
As far as composing messages goes?
yeah,
OK. Composing is, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
as far as composing a post, like new posts or
Yeah. So right now, stay in the umbrella of brand reputation monitoring. Composing messages on these platforms is a totally different talk we can have. Because, yeah, in general, I prefer you go over to the native platform and post natively, because the messaging is different. Even if it is the same, hey, we got a 96, oh my God, best wine ever, your messaging for that same content piece is going to be different on Facebook than it is on Twitter, than it is on Instagram, right? So I don't necessarily recommend that you just go to Hootsuite, post one message, and have it syndicate out to all the. I'm just kind of showing you this from a brand reputation monitoring standpoint and saving you a little bit of time. Yeah, you're welcome. So basically, yeah, it's a little hard to see, but you can see the tabs at the top. The first one's called Reputology, that I'll show you in a second. But that's Facebook, it's Twitter, it's Instagram. What's really cool about it, though, is it has some really cool features. The thing I really like is for Instagram, it has location search. So you can actually see if things aren't hashtagged with something that you're looking for, or they're not tagged with your business name or your business handle. It actually knows geolocation around your winery. So if somebody snapped a picture out in the vineyard and they didn't tag it correctly, it'll still capture that, and you'll still get that. So it's just a really kind of cool, oh yeah, like look at that. Or if you're in the Dundee Hills and there's a winery every 30 feet, you'll see pictures from nearby wineries coming in as well. Question?
Yes, so my question is, as a business, as a small winery, do you recommend being in all those social media?
Nope, not at all.
So how do you decide which one is, because when I post a picture,
Mhm.
I don't post it as just a personal Facebook.
Mhm.
I haven't made my decision about having Facebook
For your business, or yeah.
I have on Instagram, and I always, when I post a picture, I put hashtag don't post it perfect, right?
Mhm.
And then they have more followers than I have in the beginning. So how do you make those decisions about, not because everybody's doing Instagram, Twitter,
Mhm.
Facebook, everything that you have to do it.
Yeah.
How do you make those decisions about which ones are,
So the question is, which platform should a small winery be on, and how do you make that decision? I mean, is that the? So I'll answer this in a couple. One, which one do you like? Because if you don't like using it, it's going to come through. It goes back to that authenticity thing that we all talk about, right? If you hate posting on Facebook every day, that's going to come through in your posts. If you love taking pictures and you're on Instagram, that's going to come through in your Instagram posts. So I'd much prefer that you actually enjoy what you're doing and you love selling your wine on these platforms than forcing it and being like, somebody told me I need to be on Twitter. They were at the OWB marketing presentation. No, just go with what you like and what you know and what you will actually use. Because I'd so much prefer that you use it than it becomes a ghost town that you hate using. So A, do you like Instagram? I do like Instagram. There you go. There's your decision made. For wineries in general, to give you now the general official response, you should be on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is perfect for wineries, particularly if you're on the ground in the vineyard. You have beautiful, Lord knows, if you're a manufacturing company or if you're in some office building, you do not have many opportunities for Instagram. But we happen to be in the business of we have beautiful vineyards all around us. Like there couldn't be a better medium for that on a daily basis, right? So, so that's why I really love Instagram, and it's quick. And then Facebook in general, just because if you have a tasting room and people are coming in to your tasting room, they're going to be looking for you to tag you and to share. And so the value of having a Facebook page, even just for that, is really important. People kind of are expecting you to be on those two platforms. Okay, who here does indeed monitor their online reviews? TripAdvisor, Yelp. How many of you monitor it weekly? Okay, good. Like every once in a while, I kind of do it. Raise your hand. Okay. There is an app called Reputology that connects into Hootsuite. So it's a free trial. Yay, I don't get anything out of this. But it's $30 a month thereafter. And basically what it allows you to do is to pull in reviews from Facebook, from Yelp, from TripAdvisor, from all the places that you'd want to review, right? And you can set up email alerts as well, so that if you do get reviewed on Yelp, if you do get reviewed on TripAdvisor, you get an email, and then you can respond to it. So it's just a nice dashboard that at the end of the day, now all those separate tasks that you had where you had to make sure you're checking this, going over here, you have 5 different browser windows open, trying to keep track of everything, is now all consolidated into one dashboard, and your reviews are coming in. That's something that wasn't possible before. Keep that in mind. If Harvard said so, you should probably do it. So again, the importance of all this, right? And this just goes back to being nice and good old customer service, right? People are going to review you if you're good at what you do. They're going to review you well if you're good at what you do, I should say. But it has an impact on the bottom line, right? So if you are out there and you are doing a great job in the taste room and delivering a great experience, and people are giving you 5-star reviews as opposed to just kind of phoning it in and we don't have a plan and all that kind of stuff, there's a real difference in revenue that you can have there. So just keep that in mind. And 2014, I want to say, so it's probably even more important now. So, yeah. And so, because of this too, consumers over the past few years are making decisions quicker, reading fewer reviews. So having those reviews there and having them be good and not having a 2-star review there instead of a 5-star review is really important. So opinions are really formed quickly when they look at review sites. Whether or not, and I always think of, again, from a consumer standpoint, I'm out in wine country, I'm trying to come up with my agenda for the day, and I have a whole list of wineries, and I'm looking at reviews. If you have good reviews, you're going to be somewhere that they visit. If you don't, they're going to pass you by. They don't want to waste their time. One last thing before I take some questions. How many of you are using Facebook Messenger for your business as kind of a customer service tool? Okay, good. In all this stuff, in general, you want to make sure you're replying to emails, to Facebook Messenger as quickly as possible. Facebook knows this, and they've done a really good job of delivering some really kind of cool tools within Messenger. I just want to make sure you're aware of them. So just a screenshot of, you can reply to people. Obviously, you know how to do that. We've all been on Facebook for years now. But they now offer boilerplate responses, right? So every time that you do get that, hey, our band would love to play at your winery. I'm so-and-so, and I play the guitar. All that kind of stuff. You can have a boilerplate response ready to go of, you sound lame, and you're totally not coming to my winery, right? But you can type that in, so you don't have to do that every time. You could also, for a donation request, for example, you get a donation request. You can have boilerplate copy ready to go, so you don't have to type that out every time. You just hit, there you go. And so to do that, on the right side slide there, in the bottom right, that's where you can add those. So you just click on that, and then there's a list of all the boilerplate responses that you can develop. So it's just going to save you time. Instead of having to write that out every time or be like, oh, I'm not going to reply to this person because it's going to take too long, you delivered a reply, so you've done something positive for them, but it is boilerplate and it saves you time. So you can do something like this. Just type out your donation. So last thing, parting thought. I thought this was interesting too. JetBlue, if you don't know, has a really good reputation for customer service. Whether or not you've had a good experience with them flying itself, but as far as them replying, them being on Twitter, them helping people out instantly, right? And I thought this was a really good quote, and I think it really resonates really well with the wine industry. Because in their case, they're all about the people traveling. In our case, we're all about building relationships, right? We sell wine because we build relationships with customers. And part of that is just a natural extension of what you're already doing. And for clients who I get sometimes too that are just, I'm scared I'm gonna make a mistake on social media, or I don't know which platform to jump on, or all these questions that you kind of get, I've always just said, you know what? When somebody walks into your tasting room and you treat them whatever way you treat them, just do that online. It's no more difficult than that. Is you just treat people like people. We're in the relationship business. It's just a natural extension of what we're doing. It's kind of a cultural mind shift that you just, everything on social media is the same as the relationships that you're building in the tasting room itself. Okay, so that's it. Open up to questions, and on anything really, feel free. Yeah.
So I get the responding to the positive reviews. I just want to get your opinion on the negative review. Just to give you like quick history, we had an event. This person had a hard time dealing with the event, but they went ahead and did the event. And 6 months later, wrote a review on Yelp. Well, she gave enough description that I knew exactly who it was.
Do you have her address? No, I'm just kidding.
She wrote a bad review, so instead of replying publicly so everyone could see it, and really tried to stick to the facts, I replied to her personally to take care of that issue. There was never anything else after that. Was that the right thing to do? Because I want people to know that we do address those, but at the same time, I didn't feel that that particular one needed to be after me because I knew who it was and knew what her problem was.
Her situation was.
6 months after the fact.
Right, right. Yeah, the shelf life on that expired. You do not get to write a review. When you replied, did you say, I will contact you? Did you post a reply to it saying, I will contact you separately, or I will DM you, or I will message you?
No, I just
You just went and did it. I forgot to put it in the slide, but it is in the workbook. I have some best practices for replying to reviews. I say reply to all reviews, good or bad. Even if it's to say, I'm sorry that we had this situation. I'd love to take care of it personally for you. Please email me directly and I will take care of it. That at least is a public response that shows that you cared and that, again, other people reading the reviews now see that you took care of the problem. What you cannot do is get into a flame war with these people, right? And back and forth, and 30 posts later, no, you, right? And so one reply, if they continue to be jerks, take it offline. Say, or not offline, but take it, either direct message me, email me, or if you have their address, take it offline. But yeah, that's the general rule. And with the good reviews, respond to every review. Don't let any bad reviews go more than once. State the facts, be polite. As I say in there, when they go low, you go high. Like, let's all remember that with the bad reviews. And because I don't care about that person, I care about everybody else reading the reviews. Okay. Yeah.
I have a question about Google Ads.
Huh?
I've recently noticed, like, sometimes there's 2 or 3 ads from other companies selling our wine before you scroll down to see our website.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean we need to start doing Google Ads, or should we just be like, well, those people bought our wine at some point, go for it?
Like other retailers above you?
Yeah, other retailers.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing you can do about bumping them out unless you outbid them for your own domain name, right, or whatever they're using search term-wise. It is driving traffic away from your website, sometimes too. Well, I mean, the problem becomes if they're selling a wine that you have at retail and tasting room for $40 and they're selling it for $29.99, like there's some issue there. No, the answer is not a whole lot you can do about that because they're free to advertise that. They're free to steal your keywords and do that, right? The only thing you can do is try to outbid them and be above all that. The official website of, right, and get them to where you want them to go. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
So Reputology and Vintank are similar, or what are the...
Yeah, so who here used Vintank or had it through Vin65 when it was out? Okay, so VinTank was kind of the wine-specific version of a brand reputation monitoring, and Paul Mabry was the head of that for a long time, and then he sold to somebody else, but now he's actually developing something again. So we'll see how that goes. My thing with VinTank was if you weren't on Vin65, it was really expensive, and you could do with Hootsuite about 90% of what you could do on VinTank anyway, so I'd rather you just pay nothing to Hootsuite than $500 every month to VinTank. There were a few cool things that VinTank could do. But yes, but the Band-Aid fix, if you will, until somebody develops an amazing wine-specific monitoring platform, note to self, is to use Reputology combined with Hootsuite or use another one of the social media monitoring platforms that you're comfortable with. Yeah. Any other questions? Feel free to bug me after if you're scared to ask the question. I'm happy to reply. I'll stick around here for a little while. Thanks to Carrie for leading all the discussions very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.